10 Arsenal players returned from the international break for medical assessment. 10, now before anyone reaches for the panic button, before the headlines take over and the drama machine starts spinning at full speed. Stay with me, because the real story here is not the number 10. The real story is what is actually sitting behind it. And I promise you, by the end of this video, you are going to see this match completely differently to anything you have read or watched so far this week. Because this is not just an injury update, this is about a manager's psychology, a championship side that almost nobody is taking seriously enough, a goalkeeper decision that reveals more about this Arsenal squad than any team sheet could, and a week, this specific week, that will define whether Arsenal win anything at all this season. So, let us get into it properly. I am Amelia. If you are new here, this channel is about understanding Arsenal, not reacting to it, not panicking with it. Understanding it. Drop a like if you find this kind of breakdown useful. Right, okay. So here is exactly where we are. Saturday night, 8 o'clock, St Mary's Stadium, Southampton. FA Cup quarter-final, live on BBC One, free to air. The biggest domestic cup audience of the season so far. And Arsenal are walking into that fixture, still carrying the weight of a Carabao Cup final defeat. Manchester City beat them 2-0 3 weeks ago. The quadruple, which genuinely felt possible back in January, is already gone. So what remains? The Premier League. Arsenal are top of the table. The Champions League, quarter-final against Sporting CP on Tuesday night. And the FA Cup, one win away from a Wembley semi-final. That is still a remarkable position to be in, but the timing of this particular week could not be more uncomfortable, and that is where I want to start, because here is the question I want to put to you right now. And I genuinely want you to think about this rather than just accepting the version the headlines are giving you. Are Arsenal actually in an injury crisis, or is Mikel Arteta managing a narrative? Because those are two very different things. And the answer to that question changes how you read absolutely everything else about Saturday night. Here is what we know for certain. Mikel Merino is out. Foot injury confirmed months away. That one is real. No ambiguity there. Eberechi Eze, calf injury, missed the Carabao Cup final, expected to be out for around a month. Also real. Noni Madueke, forced off in the first half of England's draw with Uruguay. And Thomas Tuchel, England's manager, stood in front of the cameras afterwards and said directly, "I am worried, very sad and upset. Hopefully it is not a big injury." Now, when an opposing national team manager uses those words publicly, that is significant. That tells you something. But here is where it gets more complicated. William Saliba withdrew from France. Reports suggest the ankle concern is minor and scans came back positive. Gabriel Magalhaes withdrew from Brazil before even reporting to camp. Knee pain, but, and this is worth noting, he played 90 full minutes in the Carabao Cup final just before the break. Declan Rice, Bukayo Saka, both left the England camp early, both described as returning for assessment. Leandro Trossard withdrew from Belgium, hip issue, but again, he played the lion's share of that cup final too. And then Zubamendi, he played 13 minutes for Spain against Serbia, then pulled out of their next game with, and this is the official statement, discomfort in his right knee. And Hincapie played 72 minutes for Ecuador against Morocco, then withdrew and returned to London. So you have 10 names on a list. But when you look carefully, and this is exactly what I mean about the narrative, several of those withdrawals look precautionary. Several look like intelligent load management following a physically demanding cup final. And here is the thing, Arteta has done this before. He listed players as doubts before the North London derby earlier this season. They started. He created injury ambiguity before the Leverkusen UCL second leg. They were fine. He understands clearly that uncertainty benefits him tactically. If Eckert spends this week preparing for a heavily depleted Arsenal, and then Saliba, Rice and Saka are all named in the starting 11 on Saturday night, Southampton's preparation has been built on the wrong picture entirely. So the first analytical point is this. Separate the confirmed absences from the managed uncertainty. Merino gone, Eze gone, Madueke almost certainly not available, Hincapie very likely not available. Everyone else, wait for the team sheet. Do not assume. Right now, let us talk about Southampton. And I want to be direct here because I think this is where the analysis around this match has been genuinely lazy. People see championship side and they stop thinking that is a mistake. Let me give you the numbers. Since Tonda Eckert took over in November, 14 games unbeaten across all competitions, 11 wins, 3 draws. In that same period, 50 goals scored, more than any other team in the Championship. They beat Coventry away. They beat Fulham, a Premier League side, at Craven Cottage in the FA Cup 5th round. Ross Stewart, 91st minute penalty. Fulham away in the FA Cup. They are 6th in the Championship table, firmly in the playoff zone, in genuine contention for promotion back to the top flight. This is not a team riding good fortune. This is a team that has been structurally transformed by their manager. And the manager is the real story within the story here. Odegaard Eckert, 33 years old, German. No senior management experience before November 2025. He came in as interim after Will Still was dismissed, within weeks permanent appointment, within months Championship Manager of the Month for February, and now Bundesliga and Serie A clubs are reportedly already monitoring him. Think about that for a second. His first senior management job, still in his first season, and clubs in 2 of Europe's elite leagues are watching what he does. So what has he actually done? He moved Southampton away from a back 3. He built a clear possession-based identity. He put Taylor Harwood-Bellis at the centre of everything. Harwood-Bellis leads the entire Championship for touches and successful passes since Eckert arrived, and he has made his side genuinely dangerous from dead ball situations. Now, I am going to come back to that point specifically because it matters enormously on Saturday night, but the core message here is simple. Southampton are not a soft touch. They are in form. They have tactical shape, they have a manager with enormous personal motivation, and they are playing at home in front of their own supporters live on national television. Do not underestimate this. Quick question before we go deeper. If Arteta could choose which players to have fully fit this Saturday, who would be at the top of that list? I will give you my answer. But first, let us map out what Arsenal actually look like going into this. So, what does Arsenal look like walking into this match? Let me be precise. If we take out Marino and Eze, confirmed absences, and assume Madueke and Hincapi do not make it through assessment, Arsenal's available options shift quite significantly. The likely shape is a 4-3-3 or a 4-2-3-1. Gyökeres leads the line. That is not in question. Martinelli on the left, Saka on the right, if fit and if Arteta decides to play him from the start. In midfield, Norgard anchoring, Rice alongside him potentially, Havertz in the advanced midfield role. At the back, this is where it gets genuinely interesting. If Saliba and Gabriel are both available, Arteta has his first choice defensive pairing. The structural foundation holds and the conversation changes, but if one or both are absent, Mosquera comes in. And here is what I want you to understand about that. Christian Mosquera is 21 years old, signed from Valencia last summer for around £15 million. He has shown real composure and quality in the appearances he has had, but an FA Cup quarter-final at a ground where Southampton have won 6 of their last 7 home games, followed by a Champions League quarter-final in Lisbon 3 days later. That is an enormous ask for a player still establishing himself in English football. That is not a criticism of Mosquera whatsoever. That is simply the reality of what Arsenal's squad depth looks like at this specific moment in the season. And here is a point that rarely gets enough attention. Arsenal loaned out 4 players in the summer: Zinchenko to Nottingham Forest, Kivior to Porto, Nelson to Brentford, Vieira to Hamburg. At the time, fine decisions. All 4 had limited first-team futures at the club. But in a week where Arsenal play 2 cup quarter-finals and may face the possibility of extra time at St Mary's, those are 4 bodies that simply do not exist in the building anymore. The squad depth question is not abstract right now. It is live and it matters. Okay, this is where things change. This is the part I want you to really pay attention to, because here is what I think the vast majority of people watching this match on Saturday night will miss completely: the set-piece threat. Southampton's most dangerous weapon is not Ross Stewart's individual quality, though that is real. It is not Finn Azaz's creativity, though that matters too. It is their dead ball operation. Against Sheffield Wednesday alone, 3 goals from set pieces. James Bree, Ryan Manning, Taylor Harwood-Bellis all scored from dead balls during that unbeaten run. Now think about who Tonda Eckert is. An analyst by background, he spent years at RB Leipzig, Bayern Munich and in the Germany national team setup, studying opponent patterns, identifying structural vulnerabilities, building game plans around specific weaknesses. That is not a coincidence, that is a skill set. And right now, if Saliba or Gabriel do not start, if the holding midfield screen is disrupted, if the goalkeeper is still carrying any psychological weight from a cup final error, Arsenal's defensive structure is not at full strength. That is precisely the scenario Eckert has spent his career preparing to exploit. Put yourself in his seat for a moment. A potentially depleted centre-back pairing, possible disruption in the defensive midfield, a goalkeeper whose confidence was publicly questioned 3 weeks ago, physical players like Stewart and Harwood-Bellis who can win aerial battles, set-piece routines built over months. If you are Tonda Eckert, this is the match you have been building toward. Arsenal need to be alert to this in a way that goes beyond their standard defensive preparation. This is not a routine set-piece concern. This is a targeted threat. Here is what I keep coming back to when I think about this match. Strip away the injury noise for a second. What is the single variable that changes Arsenal's attacking ceiling more than anything else? One player. And it is not the name most people are focused on right now. Martin Odegaard, out since February 22nd, knee problem, ruled out of Norway's international fixtures, but described in the most recent updates as closing in on full fitness. Here is why this matters more than almost anything else on Saturday. Without Odegaard, Arsenal's attacking pattern is functional. Gyökeres holds the line, Martinelli makes runs behind defenders, Rice drives forward from deep. They can score goals and they have been doing exactly that all season. But with Odegaard, even from the bench, even for 45 minutes, the creative ceiling is a different conversation entirely. He creates the rhythm. He finds the half second on the ball that opens spaces. He is the player that defenders cannot afford to ignore, which means the spaces open up naturally for Gyökeres and Martinelli to exploit. His presence changes the mathematics of the attacking phase, and this has barely been mentioned in any of the match previews this week. Every conversation is about who is absent. I want you to think about the possibility that Odegaard is available here, because if he is, even in a limited role, this match changes immediately. Now Victor Gyökeres. He scored a hat-trick for Sweden during this break. World Cup playoff semi-final against Ukraine, 3 goals. He comes into the biggest week of his Arsenal career in form, confident, and with a very specific stage waiting for him on Tuesday night that we will get to shortly. But first, Southampton. And here is what sometimes gets lost in the tactical conversation around Gyökeres. He does not simply score goals, he holds the ball under pressure. He brings runners into the game. He creates the physical platform that allows Arsenal's quicker players to operate in the space behind the defensive line. Against the Southampton side that will defend with shape and look to hit on the counter, that ability to hold the line and bring Havertz or Rice into play is crucial. He is not just the finisher here, he is the foundation of the entire attacking structure. And if he is sharp and the evidence says he is, he will be the difference. Right, here is where I stand on this. Professionally, analytically, honestly, Southampton winning this match is not a newspaper talking point. It is not a fantasy upset if the right combination of events fall their way. A goal from a set piece, a centre-back pairing missing its first choice options, a goalkeeper under mental pressure. This is a very real possibility, but Arsenal's ceiling, even in a weakened state, still exceeds Southampton's. Gyökeres in form, Martinelli's directness and pace, Saka's individual brilliance if he features, the experience of finals, of European quarter-finals, of title races. That gap in quality and big game experience does not disappear because of an injury list. So here is my verdict. Arsenal advance, but I want to be precise about something because this is the part that I think matters most. The result on Saturday matters less than the cost of getting it. An extra 30 minutes at St. Mary. Key players carrying knocks into Tuesday. Gyökeres going 75, 80, 95 minutes 2 days before Lisbon. That is the real danger. Not losing to Southampton. Winning in a way that damages what comes next. Arteta understands this better than anyone. His team selection will reflect it. His substitutions will reflect it. The margin of this result, if Arsenal win, may be deliberately narrow because Arteta has already decided that the bigger prize is still ahead. Watch the shape of this win as much as the win itself. Let me step back for a moment because this week does not sit in isolation. Arsenal have spent over £248 million since last summer. Gyökeres, Zubimendi, Eze, Madueke, Mosquera, Norgard, Kepa, Hincapié, 8 new players, a rebuild of serious scale and serious ambition, and yet they cannot get through a single international break without 10 players returning for medical assessment. Now, I am not saying that to be dramatic. I am saying it because it is the structural question that sits underneath everything else this season. The loaned out players Zinchenko, Kivior, Nelson, Vieira are unavailable in the exact week Arsenal need depth most. There is no true backup for Zubimendi as a deep-lying playmaker. The gap between Arsenal's first 11 and the options beneath it remains real. Again, not a criticism for its own sake, a structural observation. The gap between Arsenal's ambitions and their squad durability is the defining tension of this entire season. They have the quality to compete for everything. They may not have the depth to sustain everything. And the next 7 days, Southampton, Sporting, Bournemouth, is where that tension is being tested most direct. If Arsenal come through this week in strong shape, FA Cup semi-final secured, UCL first leg in a good position, Premier League lead intact, the narrative changes completely. We are talking about a genuine treble challenge. We are talking about Arteta managing one of the most significant seasons in Arsenal's modern history. But if this week fractures, if St Mary's goes wrong, if Lisbon goes badly, the injury crisis narrative takes hold and the pressure on the manager enters a different register entirely. This is not just a cup quarter-final. This is a week that tells you precisely who Arsenal are in 2026. So what comes next beyond Saturday? Win at Southampton, then Tuesday, Lisbon, Sporting CP. Champions League quarter-final first leg. And here is the specific storyline within that storyline that I want you to keep in mind. Victor Gyökeres at Estadio José Alvalade. The ground where he scored 43 goals in a single season. The stadium where he became the player that made Arsenal spend £64 million to bring him to North London. Going back, in the colours of the club that paid to replace him. The reception he will receive, the way he responds to it, the pressure and the theatre of that specific night. That is one of the genuine human sporting narratives of this entire season. And Arsenal only arrive there in good shape if Saturday is managed correctly. Then April 11th, Bournemouth in the Premier League, 3 games, 8 days. The squad management puzzle Arteta is solving this week is not just about Southampton. He is thinking 4-5 steps ahead right now. Every minute played on Saturday has a price attached to it. Every substitution sends a message about his priorities. Watch the team sheet carefully when it drops. Watch the bench composition. Watch the minute markers on every change. That will tell you more about Arsenal's true season direction than the final scoreline at St Mary's. I want to leave you with one thought, and I want to be honest about where it comes from. When I look at Arsenal right now, the injuries, the scheduling, the pressure, the weight of performing in cup finals and cup quarterfinals in the same compressed week, I do not see a crisis. I see a test. Every squad that has won anything meaningful at the highest level has faced a week like this at some point, where the depth is genuinely stretched, where the manager has to make uncomfortable decisions, where the margin for error disappears. Arsenal have not won a major trophy since the FA Cup in 2020. For several years now, they have been the nearly team, the team that pushed hard against the boundaries but could not quite cross them when it mattered most. This week is where you find out if that changes, and I will be here breaking down every team sheet, every tactical decision, every significant moment as this week unfolds. If this video gave you a different lens on Saturday night, leave a like. It genuinely helps the channel. If you want my full predicted starting 11 for Arsenal at St Mary's, that video drops very soon. I am Amelia. This is Amelia Arsenal Update. See you in the next one.